we need to talk about Polygon. So hey everyone, welcome back to Upside Down Data. Today I want to talk about Polygon and their native token Matic and whether or not it might be the next altcoin setting the stage for its next big leg up. So just to get into it a bit, Matic has performed well going out of its October lows. We can see that's currently up about 70%, was up almost 100% at the top of this altcoin rally. But it hasn't performed as well as some others, ones like Solana, ones like AVAX, for example, ones like Chainlink have outperformed Matic in this time. But Matic is one that's considered to be a high quality product. It's kind of a blue chip in the altcoin space. So I think it's interesting to watch. And the other thing that makes me interested to watch Matic right now is what our models are saying about it. So I'm showing you here our short-term upside downside potential indicator, or UDPI. So this is a risk model that we have here on the channel. It cares about moves that play out over days to weeks, so short-term in its time preference. And basically higher values mean higher risk, lower values mean lower risk in the short term. And one of the things I think is interesting is that we've actually seen risk start to cool off on Matic over the last few days, and we're currently right around zero. And so basically that's the point at which the model thinks there's about an equal amount of plausible upside versus downside potential in the short term. And notably, Matic is quite a bit lower on these levels than some of those other assets I was just talking about, like AVAX, like Solana, for example. Basically, it has more plausible upside to play with from the model's perspective than some of those other assets. And so even though in a bear, in the depths of the bear market, being up at zero might not have looked all that attractive, it does seem like we're in a different footing now where altcoins can actually catch sustained bids, can actually go on nice rallies. And so I think Matic is going to be an interesting one to watch, especially if the short-term UDPI continues to cool off on it. And if we do get back down into some of these lower levels, that might set the stage for that next move up for Matic. So that's one of the reasons why I think it's interesting to watch, not just on its own levels on its own, but how it stands relative to some others in the space. And also, if we look at the long-term UDPI for Matic, so this is the model cares about moves that play out over months to years, so much longer in its time preference or time horizon than the short-term UDPI. We can also see that it's still below zero. It's currently at negative 0.08, so right around that midpoint of equal plausible upside versus downside in the longer term. And again, Matic is currently standing quite a bit lower on this metric than a lot of those other assets that have pumped a lot harder, suggesting that it might still have more room or more fuel in the tank if it wants it relative to some of those other potential assets. So even though Matic hasn't gotten as much attention because it hasn't pumped as hard as some of those other ones, in some ways it might be just be biding its time, setting the stage for some more upside. Now, obviously that's assuming that the market remains bullish and that there continues to be this demand for altcoins to allow prices to continue to pump. Part of that's going to be dependent on what Bitcoin does. Does Bitcoin stay steady at its current levels? If it crashes, then that would likely delay any kind of possibility of Matic pumping. And then, of course, in the longer time preference or time horizon, there's always things like recession that need to not happen and things like that. But currently, things are looking good for Matic. That as long as the market stays in its current dynamics, it seems like Matic might not be a bad place to be looking. Now, obviously, this is not financial advice. You should make your own opinions about the data, make your own decisions. But these are some things that I'm looking at with Matic right now. Now, the final model I wanted to show you was our trend confidence indicator, or TCI. Now, this is one that gives me a little bit of concern about Matic's ability to just immediately in the short term go on a rally. It might be a thing where it needs to consolidate a little bit more. And the reason I say that is that when you look at the TCI, when you see the TCI trend up, that often can lead price to the upside, but also when you see it start to trend down, it can lead price to the downside. So what you really want to see is in an uptrend, you want to see the TCI also continuing to trend up. And if you're in a downtrend, you're only going to think that that's probably going to be maybe reversing if you see the TCI start to reverse. So for example, you can see leading into this rally, the TCI was trending up aggressively, suggesting that positive momentum might have been re-entering the market. But then now that we've rallied up, you see that the TCI has started to fall off, that it's breaking out of this uptrend and starting to move down. And so what we might need to see is Matic to consolidate for a bit longer, allow the TCI to reset a bit more before then you can see that move to the upside. And especially if you were to see continued consolidation from Matic, but then the TCI start to move to the upside, that would be a good sign. So my overall take on Matic right now is that relative to a lot of the other assets that have really pumped recently, it's looking pretty nice on a lot of our models, especially other assets that you might put in the same general type of bucket as Matic. It's sitting pretty nice, but it might have some more consolidation it needs to do before it can go ahead and realize some of that upside potential. So certainly one that I'm watching, but it's not one that I'm, thinking that just immediately necessarily going to pop off to the upside. It absolutely could, but I think it also could spend some more time consolidating. But as long as it looks more favorable on some of these models than some of the other assets that have pumped, it seems like a reasonable one to keep a close eye on. All right, if you like the content, remember to subscribe to the channel, give the video a like, and follow us on X. A lot of updates about our models and more. And if you want to view live data from our models, you can go over to our website, partydigital.io. Link is in the description, and you can view that and more over there.